it's all about self-obsession.
Absolutely. Character energy gets you the man you want.
Yeah, preach.
You have been listening to the wrong voice, and it has been dressed up so well, so warm, so relatable, so much like a big sister who finally gets it, that you did not recognize it for what it actually is. But Solomon did. He wrote it down thousands of years ago, and today we are going to read exactly what he said. Proverbs 7:21 through 23. With persuasive words, she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk. All at once he followed her like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose till an arrow pierces his liver, like a bird darting into a snare, little knowing it will cost him his life. Solomon is not describing a villain. He is describing something that sounds good, something that sounds free, something that sounds like wisdom being shared between women who understand each other. The danger is not in how it sounds. The danger is in where it leads. And Solomon, a man who had more wisdom, more wealth, more women, and more experience than anyone writing content today, looked at that kind of speech and called it a path to destruction. Not liberation. Destruction. This is not going to be a comfortable message, but it is going to be an honest one. And honest is what you actually need right now. Stay with me all the way through because what we are covering today has multiple layers, and every single one of them applies directly to where you are. Here is what is being sold to you in the content you consume every day. The idea that your power is in your strategy, that dating is a game, and the woman who wins is the one who plays it best, that your sexuality is your greatest asset, and the key to getting what you want from men, that vulnerability is weakness, and emotional detachment is strength, that the goal of a relationship is what you can extract from it, rather than what you can build within it. That a man who commits to you is a man you successfully maneuvered into position. That framework sounds like empowerment. It is not empowerment. It is a performance. And Solomon described its fruit in Proverbs 5:3-4 with a precision that should stop you cold. For the lips of a forbidden woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil, but in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. The word smoother in the Hebrew is chalak, meaning slippery, flattering, deceptively pleasant to receive. And wormwood, la'ana, is one of the bitterest substances known in the ancient world. Solomon is not describing an obvious trap. He is describing something that goes down sweet and produces bitterness so deep it cuts like a sword. That is the accurate description of what the situationship culture produces in the women who follow its advice. Not freedom. Bitterness. Not power. A wound that takes years to name and longer to heal. Now I want to bring in a voice from Scripture that most people have never heard framed this way. Proverbs 31 begins not with the famous description of the virtuous woman. It begins with a mother speaking directly to her son. Verse 1. The sayings of King Lemuel, an inspired utterance his mother taught him. Lemuel's mother is speaking, a queen, a woman, and she is giving her son the most direct and unfiltered wisdom in the entire chapter. Verse 3. Do not spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings. She is warning her son about a specific kind of woman, not a woman who is simply imperfect, but a woman whose entire framework of relating to men is built on using them, on extracting from them, on a relational philosophy that ruins rather than builds. And then she gets to the famous verse 30. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. The word deceptive in the Hebrew is sheker, meaning false, a lie, something that misrepresents reality. Lemuel's mother is not saying charm is wrong or that beauty is sinful. She is saying that a life and an identity built primarily on charm and beauty is built on something that will not hold. It is sheker, a misrepresentation of where real worth actually comes from. And the content that tells you your power is in how you look, how you play the game, and how strategically you deploy your charm is selling you sheker. It looks like truth. It feels like freedom. It is a lie about where your actual worth lives. Here is the thing I need you to understand about why this content is so effective, and why Solomon spent so much of Proverbs warning about it. It is not obviously evil. That is the entire point. Proverbs 7:10 describes it as coming with crafty intent. The Hebrew word natsar, used here in the sense of something carefully planned, concealed within an appealing presentation. The advice that is slowly reshaping how you think about men, about relationships, about your own worth and your own body. It is not being delivered with a warning label. It is being delivered in a voice that sounds like the most relatable woman you know, with humor, with vulnerability, with the language of sisterhood and self-advocacy. And so you absorb it, episode after episode. You laugh along, you take notes, you start to see your relationships through that lens. And somewhere in the process, the framework shifts. What God says about your worth gets quieter. What the culture says about your strategy gets louder. And the gap between where you started and where you end up is so gradual, you never saw it happening. Proverbs 14:12 says, "There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end, it leads to death." The word appears in the Hebrew is yashar, the same word used for what is upright and straight. This path does not look crooked. It looks upright. It looks correct. It looks like the obvious way forward. And Solomon says it leads to death. Not physical death in every case, but the death of the peace you were created for, the death of the intimacy you were designed for, the death of the clarity about your own worth that only comes from knowing whose you are rather than how well you play the game. Now, I want to be honest about something because this message could easily be received as judgment, and that is not what it is. If you have been consuming this kind of content, it is not because something is wrong with you. It is because you are hungry. Genuinely, legitimately hungry for someone who understands what it is like to navigate relationships as a woman in this generation. Someone who will tell you the truth without making you feel naive. Someone who will give you something real to hold on to. That hunger is valid. The problem is not the hunger. The problem is what you have been handed to satisfy it. Because here is what the content you have been consuming cannot give you. It cannot give you the peace that Philippians 4:7 describes. The peace of God which transcends all understanding. It cannot give you the identity that 1 Peter 2:9 establishes. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. It cannot give you the standard that Ephesians 5:25 through 26 sets for what a man who genuinely loves you looks like. Someone who loves you the way Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. It cannot reach the place in you that is actually aching. Because that place was not designed to be reached by strategy or by relatability, or by a framework built on extracting value from relationships. It was designed to be reached by the living God, and no amount of podcast episodes will get you there. Solomon, the man who wrote the warnings in Proverbs, also wrote Ecclesiastes. And at the end of all of his experience, all of his wisdom, all of his pursuit of everything the world offered, he wrote this in Ecclesiastes 12:13. Now, all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. After everything, after all of it, the conclusion is not a better strategy. It is not a more sophisticated approach to relationships. It is the fear of God, the yira, the deep reverence that actually governs how you live. That is where Solomon landed after he had seen and done everything the culture in any generation offers. And that is where Lemuel's mother started her wisdom. Not with a framework for getting what you want from men, with the fear of God as the foundation of everything. And that is what this channel exists to give you. Not a counter strategy, not a more conservative version of the same game. The actual truth about who you are and what you were made for. You are not a player in a game. You are a daughter of the Most High God. And Galatians 4:7 says that as a daughter, you are also an heir. An heir does not maneuver for scraps. An heir walks in the fullness of what her father has already established belongs to her. And what belongs to you? The peace, the clarity, the God-ordained love, the purpose-filled life. None of it is found at the end of a better strategy. All of it is found at the feet of Jesus Christ, the one true living God who knew you before you were formed, who calls you by name, and who has never once needed you to perform for his attention or strategize for his love. That is the big sister advice you have actually been looking for. Not a framework for winning a game that was designed for you to lose. The truth that sets you free from the game entirely. Open to Proverbs 7 and read the entire chapter slowly. As you read, ask yourself honestly, what voices in my life sound like the smooth speech Solomon is describing? Not just people. Content, podcasts, accounts, playlists, anything that has been shaping how you think about your worth, your relationships, and your body. Write down what comes to mind without defending it. Then open to Proverbs 31:10 through 31. Not as a checklist for becoming a perfect wife, but as a portrait of a woman whose identity is so rooted in the fear of God that everything she does flows from that root. Ask God, what would it look like for my life to flow from that same root, rather than from the framework I have been handed? Let the contrast between those two passages do the work. Like this video, if the word gave you clarity today, that the content you have been consuming could not produce, share it with the woman in your life who has been absorbing the wrong voice without realizing what it has been quietly building in her. Drop a comment below and tell me, what is one thing you are choosing to stop consuming, and one thing from the word you are choosing to replace it with? Name it. Declare it. This community stands with you. Subscribe and hit the bell. Every week we bring the ancient wisdom of the living God to the exact cultural moment you are living in. Because Solomon saw this coming. Lemuel's mother warned about it. And Jesus Christ is still the only answer to everything it has cost you. Come back. The truth is here every week.